And tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. We are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our stream. I'm James McCann.
I'm Eric Askew.
And this is Christopher Hirschberger. Look, I use the broadcaster voice in everything because every broadcaster should have this voice in their repertoire.
And we are Worlds Overrun.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're covering one of our assets on our Patreon because we got a lot of feedback about it and people wanted to understand what possessed us to go so insane. I actually had a couple of patrons say, "Do you think I have a print farm?" Well, if you don't, there's one out there somewhere.
Well, actually, I want to comment on that. You do have access to a print farm. It's called Holiday Creations. If you guys need something, you just make a quick phone call, and we will support your prints. It's really not that difficult, guys. What's that?
That guy right there. I'm pointing to him in the stream.
That guy right there.
That what I'm trying to make sure I know.
To this
guy.
this way.
It's difficult because I have to think backwards because they just.
But I think that part of it comes from there's been a lot of talk within the community. I wish I could call out individuals, but I don't know the whole. What?
Yeah, no.
I don't know how the whole backstory. But there was basically, for lack of a better term, some of the other industry leaders were basically got together and were like, it's time to go big or go home. And that's just been sort of the direction that a lot of people have been talking about for supporting terrain and the direction in which development is leaning.
Eric totally misunderstood this and went beyond go large or go home. He went go massive or go home.
He skipped a few steps and he went from large and he skipped over huge and went straight to colossal.
Yes.
We're like, we don't know what to do with this.
All I can think of is the Spaceball skit right now is where it's like, are we now? No, we're future now. Are we there yet? It's just like,
this Viking hull is 1,280 millimeters by 705 millimeters by 400 millimeters tall. It's got to take at least 2 months to print.
But it's when you think about that scope and you look at the various parts, it's not as ridiculous as you think because it's mostly.
Are you sure?
Well, most of it's planar. And some of the things that make it tall are things like, for instance, there's what are the prow pieces on the front of a boat?
Do you have it on your screen?
I do, but I think I have to open up an older version of it to grab the prow pieces. But I have the whole model on my screen right now.
All right, I just shared it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna grab the. I'm gonna see if I can grab the slightly earlier version of this and see if it's got the prow pieces. The head pieces. Yeah, it's gonna have. I'm just gonna duplicate this. This is one of the 4 head pieces, carved head pieces on this, and this is what makes it so tall. But when you look at it, they're not. There we go. So these guys. Rotate. These guys are what give it its extreme height.
That makes a big difference in the height.
That makes a huge difference in the height because if you knock these down,
you save about maybe 30 millimeters.
Right.
40.
Yeah. So 400
and some.
Well, these parts right here. I'll get you a scale for a size for these as soon as it auto. But let's cancel the autosave. This part is that can't be right. I guess it's 100 millimeters tall, which something's wrong. but that adds a lot of height to the project. So, but everything else, when you start breaking it down, the roof, which is made of, I'll turn off the geometry. The roof, which is made of several panels. I mean, most of this is relatively light and relatively quick to print. We can actually get a measurement on this. This part right here is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 millimeters thick. So even though the panels, what's that?
Is it 7 millimeters thick?
Not centimeters, millimeters.
I know. That's what I said.
Yeah, it's only 7 millimeters thick, so it's a relatively quick part. I mean, most of the pieces are relatively light. The
difficulties going on here.
What's
But
that?
I'm back. I said I had some funky technical difficulties going on here, but I'm back. Like one of my windows completely screwed up on this stuff, and it like froze out. And I was like, I could hear you, but nothing was changing, and obviously what I was saying didn't do anything because nobody heard me.
Nope.
I was
like,
once an
"All right."
adventurer like you until I took an arrow to the knee.
I used to be a modeler, but I took an arrow to the knee, and now all I do is look at stuff.
Also, we're the pillars. The pillars are a little more than colossal. These, actually, James actually has these. We tested these out right off the bat. But this is
Ooh, that's big.
This is the pillars right here. But James, can you hold up a pillar? Oh yeah,
Yeah, he's
but
got
my
one.
screen's still the main screen.
Yeah, he's got you covered.
Yeah, he's got one of the pillars over there, and these recess into the base, and allow for a lot of the stability of the build.
Now, quick question, so people understand this: how many characters, standard size, 30 mil characters, can you fit in this thing? Like, what's its maximum occupancy?
If you had 10 players and every player had a squad of 8 characters, you could put them all in here and still have room for them to move around. Like
So now people.
That's with tables and everything for your banquet.
Yeah.
Yeah, this build doesn't come with kit. And I say kit, I'm talking about accessories. But we'll drop these 2 characters in there, just to give you an idea.
Yeah, put them on the front porch. That just says it all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Here they are, and they're so cute.
Little tiny characters in my little thing here. Yeah, you can fit quite a few of those on there. I think they need some drinking buddies.
I was watching, I think Thor Ragnarok when I started working on this.
Now we know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it ain't big enough.
Yeah. So where's the Hulk character? I need an armor-plated Val-Hal style Hulk. Full on like Loki horns and everything.
That's wrong.
It's in there. But yeah, there's going to be if I select the base, there's let's see here, 2, 4, 6. Hold on a second. Yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 pillars, I think.
Yep.
And if we open up if we hide some of the walls. I don't have the pillars loaded. Like I said, the pillars, other than the base, the pillars are some of the densest parts. But you can see where the keys are for the pillars for the roof. The basic fire pits are in there. The distressed floors have got platforms or daises for thrones, so thrones that people might have printed. You can see some of the decorations on the inside. If I if I turn off half of the trusses are designed to print along their seam. We can actually get inside here. There we go. So now we can look down inside, and you can see most of the assemblage. And then
Quite a bit of space to play in there.
You can run
There's-
an entire adventure inside of one building.
Exactly.
yeah,
now,
this
the
is
whole thing too. The roof comes off, so you can actually get all up in there, right?
the design is
Design.
James and I talked about this a lot actually. The design was basically, let's assemble the roof and mount it to a truss, mount it to the trusses, and then we can just drop it on. The walls recess into the floor. The floor is made of several pieces. The idea was to make it so large that not necessarily the scale wasn't as important. The size of the space wasn't as important as being able to play out an extensive event in the space and making sure that the characters can move through the space easily. It's just supposed to be, colossal.
Yep.
So
So what we need for the top of this is a colossal serpent of some nature that rips the roof off, so you guys have a reason to fight in here, right? Now,
well, I figured that this is a Viking hall. There's always a reason to fight. So
there's always a reason to fight.
Yeah.
You can always bring your favorite large scale miniature to make it feel tiny in this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you
It's-
can see there's lots and lots of space in this.
Yeah.
It's actually quite nice as far as the design and the fact that you can lift the whole top off to actually play inside of it is a big selling point. As far as if I was to tabletop game with this in a campaign, that would be something that I would look for personally. So that's why we make stuff in this way, so that it looks pretty while it's on the table. You can also lift off the lids and play inside of these things, because some of these buildings look really pretty, but they're really difficult to get into and actually do anything inside of. So they're more for they more essentially become obstacles instead of something you can actually interact with. And I love the fact that we've actually taken that to the next level, where it not only looks pretty, but it's something you can actually utilize the interior of.
Yeah, if I were gonna use this in a game, what I would do is I'd probably have the walls in 4 sections, so I could remove like this side and then keep the front side attached, or remove this side just kind of like how I've got it somewhat missing. I'd probably keep the corner.
Well, having the walls and stuff detachable like that also allows you to do battle damage style stuff. So, I mean, you could always distress a piece, or we could eventually do additional pieces that are distressed already. So you just swap them out.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, the doors, whenever you've got anything that's playable, you want to be able to do some different
Absolutely.
things. We've got
That's old
we've got
Games Workshop style, like the drop downs and stuff that they have on like some of the tanks, where the side panels open up, or the front end on like a Predator opens up, and you can actually start sticking characters inside it. Or it's like a Predator or a Land Raider, I don't remember. One of them has a gate that actually hinges, that as long as you don't glue it in place, you can actually fit the full squad inside the thing, which is kind of cool.
That's pretty nice. Then it becomes storage as well.
Yeah.
This will bang into the rocks over here, but the wall has been cut away so that you've got plenty of room to swing this thing open, so you can have the doors available for moving characters through the space, and looking down deep inside. And if you've already got your own accessories, thrones and what have you, you've got plenty of room to put those things together. And you can throw benches in between the pillars here. There's plenty of room. And although I'm going to try and put the pillars out, this will take a second. I'm going to put the pillars out if I can, really quickly. You can see how they I don't want to say they use up space, but they definitely add to the space and
Well, they
leave you
do create
plenty.
a nice line of sight things that you'd have to move around or any of that kind of stuff. So if you have any ranged ranged units or anything that you're playing with inside of here. There are obstacles. It's not like one giant open box on the inside.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm playing with the calculator based on 30mm base. There's 1,032 figures that can fit inside this thing.
Oh yeah.
well,
See,
yeah. If you
James
don't
did
want
the
anybody
math.
to move around,
Well, yeah,
So we need a little placard.
concept of that you can fit 1,000 characters in there.
Here's what you do. What you need to do is you need to make a little placard on the front in runes that says maximum occupancy 1,000
Yes.
units. And it's just like on the side on the inside. That's funny.
I haven't calculated this yet, everyone, but I'm estimating around 45 to 60 days worth of printing on a single printer.
and what's our estimate
make it pretty.
on filament? A loose guesstimate, because I was thinking
4
I
to
was
6
thinking-
rolls.
4 to 6 rolls. Yeah,
Max.
it was a little bit higher, but maximum.
This has got a
So if
lot.
I turn perspective,
This is a lot of infill involved in the base, so a lot of that mass isn't really there.
Oh, okay. So most of it's in printing the initial piece that we're going to be setting everything on top of, not
Exactly.
necessarily all the pillars and walls and stuff.
And it
Now-
might be less.
yeah,
It might
Quick
be less
question.
element.
Can you print just the walls and the roof and stuff and utilize that without having to use the base if you wanted to get it on the table faster?
You could do that.
technically, I
Have the floor.
yeah, the walls. I don't know if the walls and the pillars, because the way I built things, I do not know if the walls and the pillars are at the same level, because they
we
were
don't quite have
built.
one fully printed yet, do we?
No.
No,
No. All right. This will be
Hold-
something we can. This is something we can test once we've got a full one, and we can give some additional feedback. Or if somebody prints it and has it finished before we do, they can definitely let us know on that too.
somebody finish it before we do.
I know there are
This
crazy
was a-
people out there.
This was a
that don't believe
Patreon asset.
So just so you know, the pillars and the walls do not have the same level. But if you were to, and I don't recommend doing this because of the way that I envision how this thing would go together and come apart. If you were to glue the pillars to the trusses, you could assemble the whole thing based on the walls and pillars and trusses. It's just that these would be floating off the ground a good possibly 10 millimeters, and that's just a guesstimate looking at it. Maybe it's 5 millimeters, because the bases are usually about 5 to 6 millimeters thick.
Well, maybe as a future add-on to,
But
you can make a smaller base where you can have just the building.
Yeah. I mean, I was just
Yeah.
thinking, somebody wants to get this on the table as fast as possible. They start printing the essential pieces and then eventually get the base underneath it. It's not that you play it without the base, but you could start playing with it if you just had the walls.
yeah, I think that it's a bit of a, I think it's a kind of a big ask, truthfully, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
And we could very easily make since these are all symmetrical and squared, we can very easily make, that, like, have you ever seen the little concrete pyramid shape that people use to raise up beams and such? We could make those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Where it sits inside of that. Yeah, we could do that. I mean, it's not a big deal. But right now I'm not doing that. I'm working on the next thing.
These
I don't
are
wanna
the
look at this
questions
thing.
that I ask you that pick your brain.
I don't want to look at this thing for at least a month, because it took sadly, there were some complications, because when you build a building like this, you've got to make sure that you've got all the parts have to match up. I'll show you what I mean specifically. For instance, the roof's got some great little pieces in it. These are attached, right? And it's to close up the space, but I wanted to make a 3-tier roof. But I come back here, and this is where things get complicated, because this piece here, this is actually 2 separate pieces in the finished model. It's not one piece, but this has a cutaway on it so that these two parts can print properly, and that we can put the structures in there that we need to put in there. And it's kind of for lack of a better term, it's a way to accommodate things. You have to make sure things kind of feed into each other.
Yeah, there's always unforeseen technical issues that pop up. I mean, I deal with that on a regular basis with printing stuff, so we understand.
There was a lot
creative workarounds.
there was a lot of small things that ended up slowing me down because I couldn't just rush through the piece. I had to sit down and solve it. And this is an earlier iteration of the product. The final iteration has got all these things fixed and figured out. But I kept running into like small issues as I would go through the pieces.
Overlaps and other things that would cause print fails. And
well, everything should print the way it's intended. It's just that if you make a part, like I'll show you a good one. So this one drove me nuts. It's not here anymore because I fixed it in this iteration, but there was a piece of material here that I didn't punch out for the door. And I kept running into little things like that. And if I don't punch that out when we do have the doors,
then now somebody's got to Dremel that because there's not a spot to put the door peg.
Right. And
they're like sitting over here cussing you while they're doing it. And they're like,
right, exactly.
A slot to put this door in.
Right, but I already fixed it on this iteration, and you can see it goes all the way through the base. It goes all the way through the frame. It's just one of those things where.
Through?
Well, I was like, I got annoyed that I kept missing it, so I'm like, fine, we're punching it all the way through to make sure we have clearance. But I needed the bottom to be. What's that?
I said, but what if my door drags? I don't want it to drag on the ground. It's a beautiful door.
Then go to the drugstore and buy some brace rubber bands. Put them on the bottom of each of your doors.
Yep.
Actually the door should float on what little base there is, because there's let me see here. When we distress the walk area,
did it put it down far enough that that's not really an issue?
Yeah, you're really running along this flat here, but all of this has been cut away because we wanted to make it look like this is well worn and well traveled, so it's been distressed
absolutely
away from the original bedrock. But yeah, you're probably
going to just be concerned from a painting standpoint of scuffing up my paint job if it doesn't have something that it sits into that elevates that door just a smidge.
What I would probably do then is if that's an issue, I'd probably make either a plastic or paper washer and just put that through and
slide something up in there.
Slide something up in there.
The other thing is hitting that base floor area with a nice heavy clear coat, so you're not really worried about it. So you're like, I'll scrape it a little bit.
Yeah, I have to ask Gilbert Mondragon from the Cyrene Syndicate. He gave me the name of an amazing clear coat that it's I wish I could tell you exactly what it's called, but it's super hard. In fact, it's so super hard, we were looking at it for one of our other projects for a client, and this stuff is an acrylic. It's an acrylic airbrushable clear coat that is ridiculously hard. I wouldn't say that they'd use it for car paint, but it's very hard to scuff and scratch and so on and so forth. That's probably what I would use, and then I would take and I would put.
What's the finish on it? Is it matte?
I think you can get it.
Matte.
Yeah, matte. Yeah, we haven't purchased any, but we've been looking at it for a number of reasons. And I would get that, and then what I would do is that I might.
What was the brand?
It's a specialty product. It's not a branded product. I have it saved. I have a copy of it saved. but it's water based, which is why I was so interested in it. Because since I use the airbrush, it's not that it's not that I'm afraid of using oils, but I really love water-based stuff because it's easier to
when you
work
switch
with.
back and forth between the two, it becomes a hassle because you have to completely clean out your instruments every time you rotate between the different materials. So if you're using all water-based stuff, it's much easier on cleanup.
Well,
when you're done, you only got to clean it up once, as opposed to switching between mediums.
Yeah,
and that's where I would ultimately feel like that would be the best, is if it's already water-based like all the other paints that we would use through it, then you're good. If you're on a fully oil-based system, then that's cool, but if you're rotating back and forth, it just becomes kind of a hassle to have to clean it out in between runs.
There are some amazing people that go back and forth, and it's just not something that I have the time for. I'd rather just use acrylic and be done with it.
There went James.
I think we lost James.
I was gonna say, I mean, I'm the kind of lazy person that if I started using the oils more heavily, I would have a completely different airbrush setup that I wouldn't clean out for that. It would just, like, if we're shooting oil, we're going to use the oil one. If we're shooting water-based stuff, we use the other, and just have them both set up.
Well, that's how I learned. And when I was learning, all of the professionals and all the people that I worked with were just like, this is your stuff for your acrylic, and this is the stuff for your oils, and you do not mix them. And this is more to do with paintbrushes, but even then, I several of them used airbrushes, and they're like, this is my airbrush for acrylic, and this is my airbrush for oils, and I do not mix them.
Between the paints, though, I mean, you really honestly want to use different kinds of brushes anyway when you're doing paint application with those.
Yeah, because you can create. I don't want to say you can create mayonnaise, but you basically,
natural hair brushes work better for acrylics because the synthetic brushes the acrylic wants to stick to. And the synthetic brushes work better for the oils because the oils want to naturally stick to the natural hair brushes and get stuck in there, and it's hard to get them back out. So there's a reason that you use them that way. And I would view that doing the same thing through your airbrush is probably a good idea, having one specifically set up for both mediums, because they're both very useful in what they do. And just always remember about layering with that stuff. Like, you want to make sure that if you're going to use oils and acrylics, always make sure you use your acrylics first and use your oils on top, because when those acrylics dry, they basically turn to plastic. And unless you want sheets of paint to come off later, I don't recommend it. It's just, it's bad. It makes everybody have to feel bad. Like, we feel bad that happened to you. You feel bad because you spent a lot of time painting it, and now your paint job came off, and it looks, it looks like the serpent came through and trashed your building. It's just
when I started with the toy industry and learning how to make toys and stuff, I saw several people trying to. They're like, "Can I paint on my oil-based clay?" Which was usually plastiline. And all the professionals were like, groan. It's an oil-based clay. You can't apply anything to it. It's just gonna slough off.
It's like,
have you ever tried to make an egg stick to a nicely oiled, pan? It don't stick.
I mean, just imagine oil-based products as being Teflon. And you can throw that thing in there, and no matter what you do to it, it ain't gonna stick.
It's like a politician. Nothing gonna stick.
Oh, you went there.
Oh.
You went there.
Hey, I didn't.
I mean, I know I talked about serpents. I was gonna say, I know I talked about serpents beforehand, but you didn't have to bring them up again.
Oh God, we're all gonna die.
I prefer my mythological serpents over the real, the real ones.
Oh God, yes, I know.
At least when we're done with the mythological ones and we close the book, they go away.
Oh, speaking of mythological stuff, we were able to find some really nice liner, and I say liner, carvings of Celtic content, and I say Celtic because it's not Celtic. help me out here, James.
Norse?
Norse.
I thought you were doing great.
I'm brain damaged.
Nordic line art.
I've got a lot going on in my head.
Nordic line
Shut
art.
up.
A lot of That should be a creature. We should make an whatever that would look like.
Stop it.
I got some ideas.
All right. Anyway,
It has to have a hat.
It has to have a hat.
we ended up finding a lot of really great stuff. Actually, I think most of this stuff came from one source, and then we did make a few modifications to some of them. They're all from the same family, is really what I'm trying to get at. But they've been modified to fit given spaces, and in some cases,
In some spaces, what?
in some cases, well, the computer freaked out.
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't like it when I get close to that part for some reason. I want to show these two pieces here. There we go.
Getting in close. Yeah,
Yeah.
look at that beautiful detail.
And those should print up pretty nicely, even though these are designed to print vertically because of the trim. These should print up pretty nicely. I'm just going to render this quickly and see if we get some shadows on that. There we go. So this should print up pretty nicely, and those will take paint really easily.
I was gonna say that should dry brush real nice and get a good wash in that as well too, as long as the depth is good enough.
Yeah, and we did the same thing on the outside. A lot of the outside stuff, like I said, it's got some. We skipped a few panels here and there because we didn't want it to become obscenely gaudy. Plus, when all the stuff is turned on the inside with the pillars and such, the pillars in particular, if I can find them,
I think you just moused over them.
they're down here. It's a nice way to break up the surface without getting too ridiculous, because you can see that they're there, but they're not all there. And we were thinking some of these might want to paint a tapestry, so we left some flat areas so that people can really do some crazy distinct paint jobs instead of just slapping flat color on it.
Yep.
The other thing I would do is that if this were me, I would put rushes along the borders. I would just go get some broken up, say for instance, either some wood chips, like some wood shavings, and like paint them, spray some red on them on one side, and then just throw rushes around the corners and fill in that space, and then dab it down with some wood glue.
I think
and
doing all the extra accoutrements on here would be nice, and hitting like the extra grass and stuff around the area, like little patchy grasses, and coming back in, depending on how we do the on what level you want to take it to. There's a lot of modifications you can do to this that would make it look really cool. The base, having a nice base model to start with is always the greatest place to be. And then moving on from there is adding all of the personal touches to that stuff.
I would keep this as a stone. I would keep the steps as a stone, but I'd probably throw sand down around the fire pit and in the recess. There's like you said, there's always add-ons and modifications you can make to these things to make them a really nice piece. And this is just a starting point for people to really have a broader concept. Plus, this is roughly 2 to 3 times the size of an average longhouse. It's supposed to be like the gods' longhouse.
Yes, the longhouse of the gods.
Well, yeah, which gives you, and since you have all of these wonderful walls and stuff in here, we can paint the Pantheon on the inside, which actually there's been a couple of things that I've looked at recently about freehand painting on some of these, and there are some guys out there that have done some amazing work for this kind of stuff. Oh, yeah? And that would be a perfect place to practice your skills, because even if you don't like it, it's on the interior of the building, so you're A, not going to look at it all the time, and B, it would be real easy to cover back up and try again.
Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, that gives you a lot of flexibility in the customization, and that's, I mean, also at the end of the day, that's really what this whole hobby is about, is trying to make it, whether, I mean, there's a bunch of different types of hobbyists that enjoy this content, but at the end of the day, we like to personalize everything. So being able to have those flat spaces and having it engineered in so that you can do that kind of stuff is really cool.
Well, the other nice thing too is that if you're using an airbrush, you're putting on microns of paint. But if you're thinning your paint out, you're not just globbing it on. You're really putting on thin layers. So if you need to remove it, Gillo is recommended purple power, and I started using that to strip paint off of pieces that I have. The only downside to it with 3D prints, I find, is that if you don't have good layer adhesion, you can end up with purple power in your inside your print, and it can take a while to get it out. But if you do need to strip it, to do a new paint job, there's a number of things that you can use. Like I said, I like purple power. It's the easiest. I just go and grab a disposable Tupperware container.
Mm-hmm.
I put the part in it and I soak it for several hours. Hit it with a toothbrush, maybe even sand it just a touch. Just a little tiny bit, just to rough up the surface, and then you can go right back in. And sometimes, depending on what primer you use, sometimes the primer will stay, so you don't necessarily have to reprime it.
I was gonna say, with airbrush, I don't typically strip any of the airbrush paint off because it's so thin. It's very easy to just put another layer. It's only if you start going, it's only if you started doing a lot of extra detailing work on top of that you would really kind of want to strip it down. And in most cases, it's not necessary. It's just, unless you really just don't like the paint scheme, I just find it to be a lot of extra steps that you can just cover up with another layer of paint.
Sometimes.
It just depends on it depends on how much paint you put on it and whatnot.
Yeah, if you're heavy-handed and I was just trying to say to those people that are gonna watch this, just like you're sharing with them that there's multiple ways to do it. You don't have to be stuck with any one thing. It's one of the things that a lot of new guys, I find, that's not ours.
We don't want to show that.
A lot of the new guys, they get afraid about applying paint because they think once it's applied, they can't take it off again, or they can't paint over it, and it's not really the case.
Well, the difference between the novice and the master is the master has screwed up many, many more times than the novice and figured out ways to fix it. It's not that we don't mess stuff up. It's that we know the workarounds.
What are we telling me, Chris? Your master screw up over there?
I am a master screw up, but I know how to polish this turd.
I don't remember who said it, but somebody was talking about how great something is. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, just because you wrap a turd in bacon doesn't make it good.
This is true.
Actually, that was a political conversation.
Oh, yeah, was that?
We closed the book on the serpents a minute ago. We're good.
Anyway,
for the record, everyone, this was a Patreon asset that was released this month. It was released late because obviously it was massive, and we had a few things to work out. But Eric got it all worked out, and it released to the Demovore level on our Patreon. There are many, many other assets that we've released. I encourage everyone to go to our Patreon and check it out. And I encourage all of our resellers to take a look at the Patreon as well. There's my book.
Yeah, I think that they think that does a good job.
Thank you for pointing everybody to the Patreon.
I do want to say this. I'm really happy that so many people are coming over to the Patreon and helping us keep things rolling. I'm actually kind of also curious to see what this year is going to bring with our competitors and our partners and our friends out there. I want to see what people are going to do in the large scale and colossal scale content over the year, because there seems to be a lot of push for that, and Worlds Overrun has always been about table coverage. Want to make content that covers the table. That's been sort of like one of my core philosophies from the very beginning.
Someone over on YouTube said needs fire in the pit with LEDs.
Well,
I was
that's
going to ask earlier if we had spots for torches and whatnot, because if we've got those, then that would be something really cool to rig LEDs through.
the bottoms are hollowed out so that when you print the fire pits, you can print them in a clear or a white and very easily put polyfill and cork pieces in there so you can create illuminated fire. We left them blank for this time, but we may make a insert which has got some logs and some other things. Again, I don't want to look at this thing for a month, but we do have plans to add to this. So yes, this is designed to take LED content underneath.
Nice.
James kind of pointed it out right away. He was like, "You need to be able to make LED content for this, so you can get in there and do that."
Well, one of the other things too that we would like is, if you want to see something in particular, send us a message. We love to hear from you guys. So if there's certain things that you feel like there's not a good representation of, or that that you just want more of a certain thing, a different type of building, any of that kind of stuff, let us know. If there's not enough of a particular kind of terrain, like maybe you want more scatter terrain. I mean, I don't know. It just depends on what you're playing with. Let us know what you want, and that kind of helps dictate what we do in the future.
My farmer doesn't have an outhouse.
He does not have. Every farmer should have an outhouse, and I expect a little moon on it and everything.
We got a viewer on Twitch that says, yes, fire and torches on the walls with LEDs, please.
Well, we wouldn't do torches on the walls because this is a longhouse. What we'd probably do is we'd probably add a kit of braziers, because the braziers could then go between the pillars. That would be more accurate for the time period, and
it would be easier to design because we could use a watch battery insert and a small LED.
Right. For those of you that don't know, a brazier it's usually a shallow container that can hold coals and or fire sticks or whatever you want to burn.
Typically represented in movies by a giant metal bowl that's being hung by chains off of something. I mean,
or supported by stands.
Yeah, exactly. Or supported by a little like 3-leg or 4-leg structure on the underside.
I don't think that torches came into practical use in interiors until much later historically. But again, this is fantasy, so
I was going to say, with a wooden building, you probably didn't want fire on the support structure walls. It's probably a bad idea. I mean, in a castle, when it's all made out of rock, the rock's not going to catch fire unless it's really, really hot.
That's the DM's revenge. The building burns down around them all, and then you have a distressed version where
we're all burned down because Ulrich forgot to take down the torches that night.
Exactly. The whole party died.
We're all gonna die.
We're all gonna die. They're gonna die a fiery Viking death. There you go.
What's nice about this hall is that you can actually stick a dragon in it.
Oh, that's cool. It is big enough for that.
Yeah, that's when the Vikings befriend the dragon, and everybody's just like, well, I guess he lives here. I guess he lives here now.
Are you kidding me? Vikings never thought like that. They're like, hey, that thing doesn't belong here. We should kill it and eat it.
Exactly.
How many sticks should we poke this with?
All the sticks we have, and then we should make more sticks so we can poke it again.
Oh, man.
Well, I think we've covered everything for this asset. If anybody's got questions, suggestions, ideas, please feel free to message us on Facebook, on our Facebook page, or in our Facebook group, or any other social media platform. We're on all of them. Or feel free to send it. Let me see here. Hold on a second. I actually have it. And send email to info@worldsoverrun.com.
Yep.
There you go.
And that way we will try to be as swift as we possibly can as far as answering you on those kind of things. Just bear in mind that we are trying to make really cool stuff for you to play with. So sometimes it may take a little while.
Exactly. But we always value your input. So please
Absolutely.
send us your comments, even your dislikes, something you
Yes.
see that you don't think looks right. Let us know, because we're not perfect.
Yeah. And I also gonna say this: we, as much as we like your input, we also really could use your help spreading the word about what we're trying to do and how we're trying to improve and elevate gaming as a whole. You know, that's kind of like the Worlds Overrun mantra since the very beginning. You know, it's really a community thing. So we do need your guys' help. You know, sharing what we've got, sharing what you've printed, sharing what your paint jobs look like, sharing your mods, all that stuff. Anything you guys can do to help us.
Absolutely. If you're liking what we're doing, tell your friends.
There you go.
I mean, you can support us on Patreon. You can buy us a coffee through the links on our website, but you don't have to put any money up. Just repost the links. You know, let us know that you actually like what we're doing, and that way we know to do more of it.
Yep. Absolutely.
I guess we are done with this one, guys.
All right.
Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.